This
nice
conference will
introduction.
now be recorded.
Also, I thank organizing team for giving me the opportunity to share my experience in the area of metal additive manufacturing technologies. Today, in this next 90 minutes, I'm going to talk about metal additive manufacturing technologies. Possibly you might have heard talk from TBK Gupta in the yesterday, and similarly in the area of wire additive manufacturing by Sajan Kapil. Today I'm going to talk overall view about, start with the overall view about metal additive manufacturing technology. Especially I'll be concentrating only on the SLM, EBM, and the direct energy deposition process, their pros and cons, and where we can use those technology initially to start with. Then the specific application of metal manufacturing technology I'll be discussing. Then the third part I will discuss about what are the challenges this metal additive manufacturing technology which is facing currently, and what is the way out, which I'll be discussing using certain in situ monitoring, online monitoring technology which is available. How to use it, also connect with the, how we can connect with those to the numerical simulation tools to get a to especially optimize these process parameters to get a defect free parts. And finally I will discuss about what is the current work which is going on in IIT Jodhpur. So that is the overall outline of my presentation. I hope you will get some new information which you haven't heard about the means earlier. If you look at additive manufacturing, when you look at additive manufacturing, if you look at category of materials, we have polymers, then we have metals, then we have ceramics. So this is the category of materials that we have. Additive manufacturing is almost well established for polymers. Okay, so if you look at this is a hype cycle, this is a Gartner hype cycle, which is applicable for any kind of technology. Any kind of technology, when it start evolving, people will give a lot of hype. So they say everything in the earth can be accomplished using this particular technology. That is the kind of hype you can create during this initial stages of those technology. Then people, once they start using, then they realize that yes, it cannot solve all the problems. That's where you see there is a loss of interest happens on those technology. That is what we call, that's a phase we call disillusionment. Then people start realizing what can be done by optimizing parameters, or what would be changing certain things in the technology. This is we call is a period of enlightenment. Then you start utilizing that particular technology, making a component or maybe productive utilization of the process. So now the polymer is something which is reached to this particular stage. So it has gone through all the phases of innovation trigger, inflated expectations, disillusionment, enlightenment, and now we are in the process of productive utilization. Okay, some of the technology we develop for a polymers can be extended to ceramics, but other now there is no technology which you can say which is relevant. It's only made for ceramics. There are some of the technology which has been developed for polymers and ceramics. Polymers and metal can be extended to ceramic, but there is no concrete technology which is not available for ceramics. So that's where additive manufacturing for ceramic, it's like we can say it's in stages of infancy. It's not much work has been done in that area, but some of the polymer 3D printing technology can be used for ceramic 3D printing. But today's talk I'm going to concentrate on the metals and where does this metal 3D printing technology lies. So the metal 3D printing technology is somewhere in this particular region. So I would say, rather I can say somewhere here. So it's the early stages of enlightenment. Okay, so now we need to go from here to this place. So that's the objective. We need to see this technology to be under productive utilization process. Okay, so for that, first we need to understand why this particular process happen. First, you need to understand what is this different kind of manufacturing technologies available. What are those pros and cons, and what can be done, what cannot be done. That we should need to understand. Then what made this disillusionment? That is what I said. The challenges in additive manufacturing, metal AM especially, and why we are actually some of the challenges we already did overcome. Then what is the way to move forward to reach this level? That is what I'm going to discuss for the next 60 to 75 minutes. Then I'll discuss a little bit on our work. Okay, so how do we classify this metal additive manufacturing process? As per ASTM standard F2792, you can broadly categorize additive manufacturing into direct energy deposition process and powder bed fusion process. These are the two process major category that we have. In a powder bed fusion process, which is commercially now most of the metal AM, almost we'll see the market share. What is the market share for this powder based process? Especially the selective laser melting is something which is having the highest market share. There are reasons for it, which we will discuss, which we'll see in the later on. And in a powder bed fusion process, we have selective laser melting and electron beam melting. These both are actually powder bed based process. Direct energy based processes. One is the DED, laser powder feed DED. That's what yesterday that you have seen. It is simple extension of laser cladding. So this is something which has already been commercial. There are many machines are actually using this particular technology commercially. In recent time, there are process where you can use wire feed process. In wire feed, it can be the source of melting the material. It can be laser, or it can be arc, or it can be plasma, or it can be electron beam. So this is another variant of or it's a wire feed process, another process, but this is not being commercially being exploited till now. So I'm not going to concentrate much on this part. I already have seen that Sajan Kapil already discussed extensively on this wire feed process, so I'm not going to discuss. In today's lecture, I will concentrate on these three processes and their applications and their pros and cons in terms of different applications and in which technology we can use and what kind of situation that we will discuss. Nothing called perfect. No technology has an advantage, and depending on the application, we need to use a different kind of technology. Okay. So if we look at the market share, the powder bed based process, the SLM and EBM has a significant amount of market share. It's almost the powder bed based process has 80% of market share. So among this powder bed process, SLM is the one which is having the highest market share. It's almost 72%. So the remaining technology, DED has around 13% of market share. The remaining wire arc, wire feed, and all those process, all other process like cold spray, wire arc additive manufacturing, plasma based process, everything together, you can see a market share of around 6 to 7%. This is actually the current status. So I'm going to concentrate only on these three parts. So that is the reason why I'm going to concentrate only on these three parts. Okay, let us see what is selective laser melting, which is very familiar for the scientific community who are already using this polymer based 3D printing. It is simple extension of selective laser sintering. It is nothing new. Overall, the entire concept is more or less similar to what we do in the selective laser sintering. Instead of sintering, we do melting in this process. Other than that, yes, there are differences. Physical process wise, it is because sintering and melting are completely a different process. So that way it is very different, but still, if you look at technological point of view, in terms of AM point of view, selective laser sintering and selective laser minting are very much similar. This video can explain to you how this process. Maybe many of them are also familiar with this particular process. Those who are not familiar, for them it is useful. So as usual, like we put a layer of powder in all the cases which whatever the thing which I am going to discuss in today's lecture, it's the feedstock material is powder. Okay. There are reason for that. The reason why we use powder is you can get fine features. But on the other hand, if you use wire, the wire in generally you may get a wire minimum diameter of the wire. It can vary from 1 to 3 mm. So obviously the feature resolutions may not be as good as what you get in the powder. Powders would be in the range of 20 to 150 micrometer. And again, depending on the process, we may use a different size and size distribution of powders, which we'll discuss a little bit later when we discuss about each process. But more or less, we get powders in the range of 20 to 150 micrometer. In SLM, you can get a layer thickness of 10 to 20 micrometer minimum. You can go up to 100 to 200 micrometer depending on the what kind of parameter that we actually set up. So the first step is a layer of powders we actually deposit, and then this laser will actually depending on the area which we need to melt, and based on the CAD file, then we actually melt the localized region, and the next layer again this layer will move down, and we'll get the complete part. So this is there is an interaction between the laser and the powder. It is it is locally it is melting the layer of powders, and that's what it happens. So once we build one layer, then again it will move down in Z axis. So then another layer of powder will be placed, and the same process will be repeated till we get the final part. Okay, this is how this entire process works in the selective laser melting process. Okay. But this process is very familiar, and in later on we will see this particular technology is not applicable to all the different type of materials, because if you look at additive manufacturing technology, it is only for a limited materials are available. Even in polymers also we have only few materials you can actually 3D printed. Again, depending on the what kind of technology we use, SLA, FDM or SLS, depending on the technology, there are restriction on the materials. Similarly, here also we have restriction on the materials. That restriction comes mainly because here what the source for melting is, we use laser. There are different type of lasers are available. We have a fiber lasers, and we have CO2 lasers, and we have disc lasers. The CO2 laser is one of the oldest laser which works in the range of 10 micrometer. Here in this process, the melting happens because the absorption of laser. You have a laser, this powder is absorbing the laser. How much it is getting absorbed, that decides the overall melting process. Okay. So, but that depends on what kind of wavelength that you use. Let's say that if you use a CO2 laser, in CO2 laser, it has a 10% of absorption for if you have a glass, if your powder is in the it's a glass material, then it can absorb up to 10%. Suppose if it is steel, it can absorb only 5%. That means the energy what you supply in the laser, which is not getting utilized for melting of the material. But on the other hand, if you look at all other materials, if you take copper, gold, silver, and all the materials which has absorption, it's almost nil. So that means you cannot actually use CO2 laser to make the parts of this aluminum, copper, gold, and other kind of material. Okay. This is for steel and this is for iron, not glass it is. So it is steel and iron. Okay. On the other hand, when we actually go to the fiber lasers, more often you see most of the commercial machine we use fiber laser or disc laser. Disc laser come somewhere in this range. If you use fiber laser, which has a wavelength of 1064 nanometers, automatically the absorption of material absorption suddenly jumps from 5% to more than 30%. In the case of steel, it will jump around 50 to 60%. But still, the materials like aluminium, you have absorption somewhere around 10 to 12%. For silver and gold, it doesn't have any absorption, so you cannot actually, even for that matter, even for copper, we have very limited absorption capacity at the even for a fiber laser as well as on the other lasers. So most of the commercial machines use the range in this particular wavelength. Okay, so that itself gives you a restriction that you cannot make materials like copper, silver, and gold kind of material. Or for this matter, you can actually plot this similar curve for all other materials. Depending on that, you can identify whether this material can be printed or not, or melted or not. So the ones we melt only, you can actually print it. Okay. So for that application, people nowadays they developed a laser, what they call blue laser. They call it a blue laser, which work in the range of 300 to 500 nanometers. So when you use those kind of lasers, you can actually melt the because the absorption is more on that blue laser, so you can actually melt gold, silver, and copper. You can make component using those materials. So this is, but again, the cost of blue lasers are actually pretty very high. Suppose you consider a 1 kilowatt laser of fiber lasers, it would be somewhere around 30 to 40 lakhs. On the other hand, if you go to blue laser, that would cost will go around 1 to 1.2 crore. So that's the reason most of the commercial machines they use the lasers in the red laser, because this is a red laser. Blue lasers we don't actually use it, but this is this particular problem is pertinent for both SLM and DED. Okay, because in both the process we use laser as a source to melt the material. So that means in both the process you have the same problem because the source is laser. On the other hand, if you are using for electron beam melting, you don't have this kind of problem because the way it works very different compared to the laser based process. Here the kinetic energy of electrons, so let's say that you have electron beam, the electron beam has certain kinetic energy. This kinetic energy of electron we are using for melting the material. Okay, so that way here the 90 to 95% of energy, whatever the electron beam which through electron beam we supply, that can be utilized for melting the material. You don't have this restriction in terms of all the metallic material. We'll see. You cannot actually think of any material which has this process is applicable only for electrically conducting material. Okay, you cannot use non-conducting material because we will see it a little bit later in the next slide. We will see why you cannot do it. But in this process, if you look at the top half is very similar to the simple electron microscope. Okay, the bottom half is very similar to what you see in the SLM process. The only difference is the SLM process we do in the SLM we do in the argon or helium atmosphere. That's why we call it the controlled atmosphere. Here, the entire process should be done in the vacuum chamber, because if we don't create vacuum, the stability of the beam would be problem, and there will be a lot of contamination will be happening in the chamber. So you need vacuum. That is a mandatory for this process. In addition to the vacuum, this entire process should be done at slightly at an elevated temperature. Means we actually preheat the substrate. There are advantages, but there are issues with the preheating of the substrate, which I may not get into too much of detail. But it's a mandatory to preheat the substrate. Only on the preheated condition only actually we build the part. There are reasons for that, which it's more of technical, which I don't want to discuss here. You need to preheat the substrate, but preheating the substrate, one thing is you can actually minimize the residual stress, which is one of the major problem, which possibly you might have discussed in a previous lecture as well as in the lectures given by the TVK Gupta. One is residual stress, another thing is discharge. So those problems you can easily overcome when you preheat the material, but there are issues with the powder recovery, and reusability of powder will get restricted because when you preheat the material, which it's more of technical, which I don't want to discuss here. You can see here this video can explain to you a few things. Maybe first hand you may not able to see much difference between SLM and EBM. Yeah, in this process advantage, you can stack the part, unlike and the other process, you can stack part one over another so that you can build it together. The bottom of this particular process, as I said earlier, it looks very similar to SLM, but only difference is we preheat, and we also have a slightly the powder hop mechanism, powder, the way that we feed powders are slightly different here. So this is the first stage where we actually preheat the entire bed. We don't need additional preheating setup here in this system. The electron beam itself, by defocusing electron beam, you can actually preheat the powder so that you can accomplish the preheating step. Then you actually melt the we call contour melting. This is very common to any process which we do initially, contour melting. Then actually print the different location. Hatch melting is something which is we may make the interior part of the interior geometry, which actually we make. So then again, next layer will be placed, and we'll repeat this process. It's similar to SLM process. We actually make the parts. Okay. As I said earlier, the powder heating is done by kinetic energy of incoming electron that we use it. Okay. The one problem that you should need to understand, let's say that, let me just say that this you need to understand. Let's say this is your powder, this is your incoming electron. Okay, use incoming electron. Okay, then once this electron comes, automatically this powder particle also will get charged because this incoming electron will melt the powder. At the same time, this particle also get charged. Okay, so the moment this particle if the particle is charged, then because this is negative polarity and this is negative polarity, it will start repelling each other. So the moment if it actually overcomes the frictional force and the gravity, then it will start floating in the column. It can actually go. So it will actually the particles, the powders which are placed here, once it charged sufficiently, it can actually move and it can enter the column and it can damage the column, or even it can damage the electron gun. So this is a problem that you encounter because it is inevitable, because charging of particle is inevitable, because that is, it is going to be very high for metals. Since you are actually building layer by layer, there is actually the charge can be minimized by earthing, because there is a continuous connectivity is there, electrical conducting medium uses to do that. You can actually have earthing so that you can minimize the charging. But when you have particles which is non-conducting materials, that because of charging, then it will start deflecting the beam. Beam also will get defocus. Okay, so there are many problems that you have because of charging of particles. For that reason only, we generally use coarser particle. Because coarser particle, the floating of, let's say if you use very fine particle, it is very, because it can overcome the gravity very easily. So if you use coarser particle, then it is difficult to overcome the gravity, so that it can be placed in the chamber, means in the bed itself. That is the reason we actually one reason we preheat, because we don't want to see that a lot of charging is happening. By preheating we do with the defocus beam. By preheating, you don't actually have a very high focus beam which is charging the particle. That is the one reason. Another thing is, by using coarser particle, you can actually minimize this entire floating of the particle. Okay, this is what is explained here in this portion. Whatever I told, it is explained here. Again, we also use a scan strategy, which we'll discuss a little bit later. It's very different. So suppose you have this entire, this is a region that you want to do a layer, melt it and form a part. So in general, in SLM process, you can move like this, or you can move in the this way, or you can have this way, you can move. But here you need to have a scan strategy to like an island. You should actually melt this region, and then you should melt here, then you should melt here, then you should melt here. It's like an island scan strategy to build up the minimize the build up of the negatively charged particle. This is what I said. This, though it looks very similar to what you do in a SLM process, but entirely it is very different from the SLM process. Okay, one thing is by increasing this preheating increases the melt pool size, so it creates large heat affected zone. That's the one thing, and because of coarse powder and large heat affected area, the feature size what you get is not as good as what you get in SLM. Again, the powder size what we use is very high. Not very high, it is relatively higher than SLM, and the layer thickness what we get is also larger. So automatically resolution will be lower, which we'll discuss a little bit later. But this process is only applicable for conductive material. So, but if you look at cost of this technology, there are, look at any investment cost of this SLM and EVM. In SLM, initial investment would be larger because laser is actually much costlier than this simple tungsten filament. But maintenance of maintaining this especially maintenance cost of this equipment will be very high because you need to do entire process in vacuum. So you need to have a lot of pumping mechanism. As a whole, if you look at the part, if you want to make the EDM process would be much costlier than SLM process. Okay. But there are advantages. I'm not saying that which one is better. We will discuss here. Here laser versus EBM we are discussing. The source, thermal source, what we use is laser. Here is the electron beam. As I said earlier, it's the absorption of energy we use. We are using the kinetic energy. What you get here in the laser, we get a very fine spot. Intentionally, we are getting a fine means you can get a fine spot size. But here you can get fine. Here also you can get a very fine spot. But intentionally, we would like to defocus it so that you avoid the charge. Okay. So in general, you will have a slightly larger spot size. In both the process, the parts what you make are smaller because you are doing both the process in a certain controlled atmosphere, either in a controlled atmosphere here, argon helium, here we do in the vacuum, so that the size of the chamber and the way that you can move the deflection coil, that decides your the build volume. You cannot actually make build big parts until and unless you use multiple sources here in this process, which is not very common. That's one thing that you should need to remember. So that's the reason you always find either an SLM or an EBM, you usually get very small parts. The powders what we use, it is the finest among all the 3D printing process. Here we use slightly coarser powder to avoid the negatively charged particle. The syneth gas and vacuum we already discussed. The preheating is the advantage here because preheating you don't need additional heat sources. Electron beam itself can be used as a source for preheating. But the preheating gives a lot of advantages, which I can tell that residual stress would be higher because you don't preheat it. You have seen in the must have seen in the Sajjan's lecture how this compressive and thermal residual stresses are forming by heating and cooling cycle. That can give a lot of residual stress that can be minimized if you preheat the material. This is a major problem when you go towards materials like aluminium, where you get the residual stress can be it can be more than instant, so that you can start seeing a crack in the material. Okay. The geometrical tolerance, which is this is the major advantage what you get in SLM. You get a very good geometrical tolerance, and here because of many reasons you don't get as good a geometrical tolerance what you get in the SLM process, because one is you are using coarser powder, another thing is your spot size is higher, again you are using defocused beam. So all these things makes this process is geometrical tolerance is not as good as what you get in SLM. Similarly, the feature resolutions are it's superior, especially in the SLM is the best. You compare any 3D printing process, SLM will give you the excellent feature resolution. Here you get moderate feature resolution. The equipment cost lower compared to EBM. That's what I said, because the entire accessories, not for the laser electron beam. If you look at the source, source-wise lasers are much costlier than electron beam filament. But the thing is, the overall structure in terms of creating vacuum, you require a lot more investment, as well as maintenance are much more costlier in the process. So since you have very fine beams and fine powders, the surface finish is also much better. This is going to have a poor surface finish. In fact, DED is the one which is going to have the poor surface finish. As that Galvo is the one which actually we use for a deflection to create a move from one location to another. Here we use a deflection coil. So now let us get into the third process, which possibly might have seen little bit in the TVK Gupta's lecture, but still I will try to explain it through this video. So here in this process, this is we call is a coaxial nozzle. So in this nozzle, through center we get laser. This is we call as a powder feeding mechanism. The powder feeding mechanism can be different. You can have a 4-axis, single 1-axis, 2-axis, but still in this through this they will get powders. So the laser must be having certain focus point. The powder will be fed into the. It will be something like this. So it's like you get something, then the powder will be fed into this particular region. This is where you have your substrate. Not substrate, say layer which built in the previously built layer. Okay, so this is what we do. Then you can move this nozzle. It can be connected with the 3-axis or 5-axis CNC, or you can connect it to the 6-axis or 8-axis robot. The machine what we have is this is connected with the 8-axis robot. Okay. By doing that, you can actually make the parts. So most of the time we would like to have additional 2 axes in the bottom to see that you always try to keep the building is done in the upright. That means you do always like how this building is done at the gravity. So you don't want to do like a overhanging parts. So depending on lasers and see, we use the CNC and robot. It can be used. CNC is a very useful part when you want to make compact machine where you want like to have a controlled atmosphere. Suppose you want to have a bigger component. You want to do everything in the open atmosphere. Means if you really want to make a very big component, you can do it in an open atmosphere using the robot. But both the process has its own advantage and disadvantages, which I am not going to discuss. Until unless you have any question, then I'm going to discuss. Okay. Now, if you compare this DED process and the powder bed fusion process, this we discussed is the superior compared to electron beam process. The part size, as I said earlier, you can make much bigger components compared to the DED SML process. Okay. The reason being is one, you can, the advantage in here in this process, you can actually do it in the open atmosphere. You need not to have always, let's say you want to make a steel parts or you want to make parts with the nickel. Those are not actually prone to oxidation. You can actually use this particular technology in an open atmosphere. You can do it, but in for materials like titanium and aluminum also can be done in certain extent in an open atmosphere, but materials like titanium, magnesium, those kind of materials you need to do entire process in the controlled atmosphere. So that's where there you have a restriction of only you can go to smaller parts. Even in this particular method, you can go only to the small parts. Okay. The complexity, the part complexity, you can do any complex parts in this process, but here the complexity is very limited. It's not as good as what you get in the SLM process, but it is much better than wire or additive manufacturing process, or for that matter, other wire-based process. So here you need to have a slightly coarser particle because you are actually powder is flowing in the powder is through flow we are getting the powder. It we have a pound powder, the particle powders will flow. Means it will actually go out of the active zone. So you may not get the proper layer thickness, as well as material also will be lost. Lot of material will be lost. So we usually have slightly higher powder size. So one thing that I should need to tell in the powder bed fusion, maybe I'll also discuss at some other point. We generally use lasers which are in the range of 100 watts to 500 watts. That means it's a 0.1 to 0.5 kilowatt. But here in this DED, you need minimum of somewhere around 0.5 watt. It can go up to 3 to 4 watts. Okay, so you need slightly higher power. Automatically the cost would increase. At the same time, the layer thickness also will be larger. If you compare here, the smallest layer thickness what you can get is 25 to 50 micrometer. Here you get 500 to 1000 micrometer. One is because of the laser power. Another thing is the spot size is also larger, and we also use coarser powder. Okay. The surface finish, since you are using the beam diameter is also larger, then you are using coarser powder, layer thickness is larger, so you start getting surface finish which are actually poor. But the advantage is the build rate is almost 10 to 15 times higher here in the DED process when you compare with the SLM process. So another major advantage that you have here in this DED is that you can actually see here, and always you need flat surface to start with. For building you need flat surface, but here you can have, this is the broken part, existing part. In existing part you can actually build it. That's the advantage that you have this particular process. So that's where you start, you can use this particular process for repair. That you cannot think of in this in the powder bed fusion, but you can actually do it by some modification. If you have a repair, you want to repair the component, you remove this particular region, then you can build it. In any case, you have to start with the, always you have to start with the flat surfaces. Okay. But the advantage of the DED is it's a multi-material capability, because you have seen the nozzle. In nozzle you can have a different kind of powder. Let's say that suppose you have a 4-axis, not 4-axis, a 4 feed system you have, then you can actually feed 4 material. You can make composites. You can make nano composites, you can make functionally graded material. So many advantages that you have in this particular method, which you may not able to do it in the SLM process. This part we already discussed. Built up, it can do only on flat surfaces. Here you can do it on an existing part. It need not to be a flat one. The beam diameter, as I said, it's a very high. Here it is lower. Repairing of component, because of all these advantages, you can do repairing of component. Residual stress, because of higher heating and cooling, it's obviously in both the process you have residual stress. Until and unless you preheat, you are going to bound to have the problem with the residual stress, which is you cannot avoid it. Or until and unless you have a proper scan strategy as well as preheating procedure, you cannot avoid the residual stress process. The design freedom is actually low, but the design freedom what you have is very high. This is market share we already discussed. So this is, if you ask me which is the best technology, if someone asks me, I can say that I cannot say which is best technology, but what is your application area. Depending on that only you can decide what equipment that you would like to install and what equipment you wanted to use. Different technology has a different advantages. Depending on your application, you have to decide which one to use. So if you look at this is what I said earlier. This is a comparison. So you can see here all these powder bed fusion process have lower laser power. So you can actually use 100 to 500 watts are sufficient to build the melt the material and build the part. Here one disadvantage is that you get only a smaller part. on the other hand, the powder feed process where used the laser powers are very high, and also you can make bigger parts. So wire feed you can go even much bigger parts, but there are advantages and disadvantages with all the methods. Okay, now let us look at some few specific applications of this particular technology. Okay. So repairing of components, which is very important. If you look at the turbine blade applications, so turbine blade application, this is a very interesting application. Let's say that if you have this turbine blade, if it is broken at this particular place, so currently you don't have any other alternate. You have to remove this turbine blade. You have to replace with a new turbine because these turbine blades are either made through single crystal or by directional solidified crystal, which you can see in the next slide. So when you weld this material, you're going to lose that single crystal structure or the directional solidified structure. So you cannot actually repair this particular component. But on the other hand, if you look at here, this is what I was trying to say, that this is a texture. Let's say that this entire grains are grown in a particular direction to have a better creep properties. Okay, these directions are already designed. Based on this direction only, people are actually build these blades. Okay, now suppose if this part is broken, when you try to weld it, these two parts, obviously the joints, you may not get the continuous, means you may not, means you should not, you will not be getting the this continuity in the structure. But on the other hand, when you use DED process, you can actually build the material in the, you can use this particular broken part as a speed star, like precursor, then you can actually build the part in the same direction. That means you can control texture the way that you want, which is something you may not able to imagine in any other manufacturing process. That's especially a DED, because in DED you can actually do a non-flat surface. That's the advantage of the DED. You are seeing it. This part already yesterday, I think Gupta, TVK Gupta must have explained how you can use for a cladding for a different kind of engineering application. It can be a mining, it can be in oil industries. So basically, this process, DED process, is simple extension of laser cladding process. Still, same machine that you can, AM machine can be utilized for cladding purpose for many different engineering applications. Another advantage, not another application, or I would say the one of the major application of metal AM is in the lights. Currently, it is being used commercially or being used for making many products are in the medical application. In medical, many components, custom-made implants. This is something which is very important. Custom-made implants and patient-specific implants. These are the two things: custom-made. I think those who are working on the polymer 3D printing, they are aware of all these things. But this can be done in polymers also. But in metal, some of those like implants are must be in the only in the metal, because you need sufficiently higher mechanical property in terms of strength and elastic modulus. So in those cases, making a patient specific implants are very easy. Custom made implants are very easy. Again, the delivery times are actually very minimum, so you can actually make the custom made implants. Again, custom made, this is something which is coming up in the very recent time, custom made hip and knee replacement. Currently, if you look at in the these kind of operations, because in market you get only standard like sites like 5, 6, 7 or 8, like our chapel, there are certain standard size of hip and knee replacement materials, implants only we get it in the market. But in the operation theater, we need to do some sort of lot of sizzling and machining inside the operation theater to fit into the human body. But here, when you have this 3D printing, you can actually custom made hip and knee replacement so that you can avoid a lot of time in the operation theater, which is very important as a patient point of view. If the operation is required only 2 hours, just for machining and other stuff, you extend it for at least 7 or 8 hours, which is for that matter, blood loss and giving anesthesia, which is going to have a long-term impact on the patient's health. So that way, this it's going to, one thing is it is exact fit for the exact fit the implants you can get. Another thing is you can actually minimize the total operation time. In addition to that, you can, if you look at the total hip replacement, if you look at hip, you're going to have a different structure in the different location. This location is completely a solid. Here you have internally you have a porous structures. This is completely a porous structure. This process, this region you have a porous structure inside and then. So these kind of structures you cannot think of doing in the other process and other than process. So when you have this DED process, many implants you need to coat it with the certain materials like hydroxyapatite, but in the DED process, both can be done, building as well as coating can be done simultaneously, so that you can get very good biocompatible parts that you can get it. Okay. Now, so far we discussed about all the nice aspects of additive manufacturing. Next 25 to 30 minutes, let us look at what are the challenges we are facing in the metal additive manufacturing technology. So one of the challenges are the size limitations. Okay, the size limitations you cannot overcome in SLM and EBM that we have seen, but that you can actually minimize it, overcome in the until and unless in SLM and EBM, until and unless you use multiple heads in terms of laser and EBM source, that if you have, then you can actually increase the size, but still you have a limitations in terms of the volume. But on the other hand, in the DED, yes, you can actually make bigger parts, but the only issue is that you cannot actually do it in the vacuum. Then you can actually do it in the open atmosphere. You can make bigger parts both in the means DED as well as in wire arc additive manufacturing. You can make bigger parts, but still one thing that you should need to remember, which we did not discuss, in fact, which is very, very important in 3D printing, especially in metal 3D printing. Maybe let me try to explain it from here. Yeah, let's say this is your substrate. So start building the parts, okay, layer by layer. You build the parts, okay. You have several layers. So what happens is each layer goes through several thermal cycles. One thing. Another thing is each layer actually the cooling rates are different. This, if you have only one layer, the cooling rates are different, and this layer is going to have completely a different cooling rate. So that means the microstructure what you get here and here, it is completely heterogeneous microstructure. That means properties, if microstructures are heterogeneous, the properties are also going to be completely heterogeneous. We call texture. That means you're not going to get a homogeneous microstructure. You're not going to get a homogeneous uniform mechanical property also. Bigger the component, the more will be the variation between the bottommost layer and the topmost layer. So that is another reason why you may not able to make bigger components without having compromise on the mechanical property. Though you can actually build the part, theoretically you can build the part, but if you look at mechanical properties, the major advantage of additive manufacturing is, especially in metal, what we look at is because you have to replace the rot parts. That is the objective of metal AM is you replace rot metal parts using AM, because if you have a small parts, the properties are equivalent to the. That is a thing that you have to keep in the mind. So when you make bigger parts, the cooling rates are actually lower, so you may not get the advantage what we actually anticipate in the metal AM. So another thing which we already discussed, narrow range of material. So narrow range of material, one reason which we already discussed, because when you use laser or when you use electron beam, that itself gives you a certain restriction. But still, there are a lot more restriction coming, mainly because of optimization of process parameters, which is very difficult in the metal AM, which you have seen in the yesterday's must have seen in the yesterday's presentation. Even simple distortion is not actually a major problem, but even a simple distortion, overcoming the simple distortion itself is a major challenge. So that way, optimization of parameters, it can be very complex because it is a machine specific, powder specific, or system specific. So whatever, let's say that if I optimize, let's say that I have certain material, certain powders, and if I optimize in my machine, need not to be same for another machine developed in the another place, because even we make small changes in the component, then you have to do little bit of tweaking of the parameters. That's where it is much more complex in getting more material, because each material required several years of R&D, at least 1 or 2 years of R&D to get optimized parameters. So that's where you have a limited material capital. How to accelerate it, that is what we are going to discuss a little bit later. How to accelerate this optimization process. So what are the kind of new technologies available in our hand? How to do this optimization process much easier and with an effective way. So one more challenge what we have is in that you are never going to get surface finish as good as a conventional manufactured part, which those who are working in polymer also can accept it. In metal, depending on what kind of technology we use, still whatever may be the best technology, SLM is the best in terms of surface finish, but still you may not able to get anywhere close to what you do get in a conventional manufacturing process. So that's where now people have come up with the hybrid manufacturing, where you can actually build as well as machine simultaneously. So this is actually a DMG mode is developing hybrid additive manufacturing process, where you build parts using the laser-based process. In the same CNC, you can have another head which actually can machine it in the whenever you need it. So this is building is happening. Once you complete the building the part, the laser head will move and the tool head will come. So that will actually machine the parts. So this way you can actually improve the surface finish, especially in the internal channels, which are actually once you build the part internal channel, you cannot machine it. So that way you have this advantage of machining, and you also have a lot of design freedom. This can be done only in the DED process. Okay, the same thing can be done with the robot also, but CNC has a little bit more flexibility. Okay, so this is how we build the part, and also we actually machine it. It can be done in the same machine. So you can get a good surface finish in the process. This is okay. Then what is the other unsolved challenges that you have in terms of property? Okay, let us look at in terms of property. Yes, additive manufactured part. I said you would like to replace AM parts. You would like to replace rod part. Rod means you know that you make an ingot, then do the deformation process and do heat treatment. Finally, you get a rod part. Because of extremely fine cooling associated with the AM process, you can get properties. It is equivalent to the rod product. What are the properties which we can get equivalent to the rod part? One is stiffness. Yes, you can get equivalent to the rod part. Strength, it can be as strong or even stronger because of very high cooling rate. You can get even stronger part. It can be as hard or even harder. These are the advantages that you have in the AM process, but you are never going to achieve ductility which are anywhere close to what you get in a conventional manufacturing process, because you have several layers. Each layer is the interface, so that you're not going to get good ductility. And fatigue is something, is a major challenge which is involved in the AM process, because when you have cyclic loading, these interfaces are the very weak zone. It can give you the problem. People have not come up with the, until now, people have not come up with the any technological innovation to overcome this fatigue problem. Still, it is there. The last 10-15 years, people were talking about fatigue of AM parts are poor, but still it is exist. I don't think that people have come up with any solution for the fatigue property. Similarly, toughness is also, if the ductility is low and fatigue is low, also the toughness is low. So these are the problematic area. Ductility, somehow people have came up with certain innovation on the material and scan strategy. Still, they could actually restore some amount of ductility, but this is a major challenge. Still now, people are unable to overcome this particular problem. As I said earlier, the scan strategy, which people possibly, SLM is a process where you have a very flexible scan strategy. Scan strategy can allow you to minimize the thermal related problem, because by having an innovative design strategy, you can actually combine it with the model, you can actually minimize this thermal residual stresses and all other issues. Okay. So let me just let us not get into this part. Okay. What is actually the thing is, one is better and cheaper machines. Yes, in fact, better and cheaper machines are actually coming up. If you ask me, 5 to 10 years back, most of the AM machines were somewhere in the range of 5 to 10 4. Now you can find metal AM machine. SLM can be bought in the range of 70 to 80 lakhs, and DVD can be bought in the range of 1 to 1.5 crore. Even if you look at compared to YRR, these are very costly. But see, there are means YRR, you're not going to get anywhere close to that product. Even the properties what you get in the YRR, you may not be even equivalent to the cast product. That means these processes are not competing with each other. Let me just frank about it. There are application areas available for each technology. Okay. This is what I'm going to discuss: advances in online monitoring and process control. This is something which is coming up in a big way. Already many machines are already working on that. In fact, we are also doing a lot of work in this particular area. Online monitoring and process control is something which is very important to optimize the parameters. Once you do that, automatically this wide range of printable materials will be coming up. And another thing is specialized processes and customized machine. As I said, like 60 lakhs, 50 lakhs machines are like, suppose you want to work on only the biomaterials, I want to make only dental implants. Why do you need big machines? You can actually custom specific small machines you can make, so that can actually cater that kind of market where you don't need to make a bigger component. Small dental implants can be made with 30 to 40 lakhs machines also. So that's the another way of looking at it. The healthcare is the one where already, as I said, the transportation and healthcare is already in industrial use. In aerospace and other areas, still there are issues. Okay. Why we have this major problem in this? Let me just show you here. Okay, so why optimization of parameters are actually very difficult? Because the laser related parameters like operating wavelength, which you can fix it, but that you can actually also vary. You have these parameters: laser power, pulse energy, part size, beam quality, everything you can vary. Each can give you a slightly different properties. Okay, similarly you have other variables like scan speed, scan spacing, scan pattern. Everything will give you completely a different property. Same way, see, optimization, see, you have to keep certain variables, okay, as a constant. The moment you change the powder size, then again you need to vary on all these things. If the moment you change the powder shape, you have to do all these changes. The moment you change the surface toughness or powder size distribution, then you have to change all the parameters. That's where it is very complex, because so many parameters that you need to vary to get optimum values. Okay. So in general, broadly, people talk about additive based on laser power, scan speed, and energy density. So this is a very broad way of understanding laser power and scan speed. If you control these two, then automatically you can actually, but this has to be bare minimum. You have to optimize laser power and scan speed for a particular system. But again, you have this scan direction, scan strategy, the layer thickness, hatch spacing, everything that you need to optimize in the process to get a proper properties and the final features. So in general, the basic way of looking at is when you have higher power in keyhole, yeah, when you have very low power, you may get into the lack of fusion. Very generalized way of looking at it. Or if you have very high speed, you should get a Balling inlet. So this is the ideal processing region. This is also very big region. In this ideal processing region, what is ideal for your machine? Something you need to optimize, which is not that easy. What you optimize for one layer need not be same for a next layer also. Or what you optimize for one powder, you need not be same for another powder also. So if you look at based on this concept, I have used a higher laser power. The logic is somewhere lower scan speed and lower laser power is the ideal. But if you look at here, this is done at lower power and lower scan speed. It has a lot of porosity, but on the other hand, if people have done with a higher power and higher scan rate, it is showing lower porosity. So there is no straightforward answer. Though you say that this is optimized parameter, there is no straightforward answer available in the metal AM to say that what is optimized parameter for a given condition. This is very complex, and what kind of process what we use and what kind of material we use, it's all very complex. So that is where if you look at the kind of parameters, maybe let me just get into this particular slide. Okay, so these are the let's say that these are the parameters which you would like to vary, and these are also you can vary software, geometry, scan strategy, hardware, build chamber, atmosphere. These are the things that you can actually vary. In addition to that, we have a little bit more variables are there, but all these variables are very much interconnected. Material chemistry, melt geometry, the solidification pattern, the surface finish, what we get, these are all interconnected, and optimizing all these parameters are very difficult. In addition to that, you have so many defects in the AM process. You have warping, which you have seen in the maybe you must have seen in the TVK Gupta's lecture. Delamination, you might have heard in the other people lectures. Balling is specific problem, and cracking, it can be a solidification cracking or hot cracking, or it can be a delamination based cracking. The porosity, it can be a lack of fusion, keyhole. So even just for a matter of porosity, if you want to optimize the parameter like porosity, so you can actually have to control laser power, scan speed, hatch spacing, layer thickness, scan strategy. Not only that, these are processing those parameters. You also have a powder induced porosity, like it can be what kind of process that you use, whether it's atomized or what is the size of the powders. Everything actually decides what porosity that you are getting. Porosity can come based on keyhole, or porosity can come through lack of keyhole. How do you optimize all these things? Which is very difficult to do it, because you have so many complex mechanisms are involved, solid mechanics, which discuss about thermal as well as the stress related problem. Then you have a solid to solid transformation in the multiple layers. You have solid to solid transformation. Then you have solidification. You have liquid to solid transformation. Then you have laser beam, metal get vaporized, then you have particle dynamics, which you have particles which are flowing, then you have thermal fluid dynamics, which is very important in the AM, especially thermal, which is very important role in the AM process. So it's a very complex, even a optimizing that you must have seen in the, even getting a single layer itself is very complex. With a single layer with the defect itself is complex. Getting a multiple layer and getting a final product without much defect is much more complex. Okay. So that's where now people are working on in situ monitoring process. So online monitoring you call an in situ monitoring process. So traditionally what we do is you keep certain parameters and vary the parameter, build the part. After building the part, you do microstructure and entity technique and see whether the defects are found, and then you do mechanical property, and through that hit and trial method you can actually do the optimization process. Nowadays there is a we call in situ monitoring. In situ monitoring, each layer you can have a different parameters. You can actually online you can monitor what is coming out. In situ monitoring can be a different technology, which I'll explain in the next slide. You can actually monitor while processing itself. There are process which we'll discuss in situ monitoring and feedback control, which is something which is very important to optimize the parameters in a much effective way, in much faster. Otherwise, you will be doing several years of work is required to optimize the process parameter. Here, each layer you can set up a different parameters, or each layer you can actually, whenever, means if you have used certain data control or data analysis, using the help of the data analysis, you can optimize the parameter much faster. That's what we are going to discuss. If you look at in situ monitoring tool, we have like thermal based tool, then optical based signal, acoustic based, and X-ray signals, and many other signals, many other different sensors are available to in situ monitoring methods. So let me just concentrate on only a thermal based method. In thermal based method, it can be a simple pyrometer, or it can be a thermocouple or pyrometer, but mainly the non-contact pyrometer is the one which is widely used in this process. And other thing is the IR camera. IR camera, which can give you the information layer by layer, depending on where you place IR camera. If you top mount, you get certain information. If you do side mount, you can get certain information. This is what you will be getting. By doing that, you can actually identify the defects based on the thermal profile. You can get the identify the defect layer by layer. But more often the problem is, let me just tell you, you cannot place camera everywhere. Okay, you need several IR camera. If you have at least 3-4 camera, you can do it. But more often what we do is you try to couple with the numerical simulation process, combining with the IR camera and non-contact pyrometer to get the in fact to do the in situ process monitoring. It can be a commercial software or your own code that you can use to develop the thing. Okay. Nowadays, let me also give you, this is about in situ process. Nowadays, feedback control, because one is you can monitor. By monitoring, still only you can monitor after making final product only you can see that, okay, this has had a defect. But can you correct it during, or can you actually identify during the process itself? That is where you need to have a help of big data analytics, because you have so many layers in this system, so many data points that you will be getting. You need to have the help of the big data analytics and enabled with the high performance computation. Also, you need to have artificial and machine learning algorithm, which itself should actually identify the defect during the process. It can be connected with the your process control system. Then you can actually it can do automatic feedback control. So So that's where nowadays a lot of work is going on, combining the this big data analytics. It's basically AM parameters, in situ monitoring, numerical simulation, and data analysis. Together, you can optimize the parameters. This is what now the recent trend in metal AM is that using this data science with the existing knowledge in the in situ monitoring, then with the numerical simulation, you can actually do this kind of process. Okay, this is a setup that we have in the our place. We have a DAD machine, which is actually 8-axis robot, and using this machine, you can actually build big, complex and big components. So this is the project which is funded by DST. So objective here is in this process is the objective of this project is indigenization of this entire process. Okay. So if you look at our machine, the only the laser and laser optics is something which is not available in India. Only this part we have taken in India. This robot actually in our machine, it is from abroad. In fact, it is the part of the project we are doing in the PSG also. There we use a Tata robot. That robot part is also actually it is not that much flexible, but still because for indigenization point of view, we are actually using a Tata robot. So that way, all other parts, even this, all this feedback control, path control, software, everything was developed by us, and currently this machine is actually working. Still, we are working on this the path control part, where we could develop certain software which actually can control it, but combining this one with the existing robot, we have certain difficulty which we are actually working on. Otherwise, all the other component actually made developed in India itself. So now optimizing the parameters, we also have certain tools like optical sensor, not sensing. We already developed certain tools, optical sensors, IR camera, and non-contact pyrometers. So currently under procurement of other sensors to expedite, means in fact accelerate this power and optimization process. We also have our strength is on thermocouple detector that can be utilized with some of the thermal models, which is not there in even in our literature, so which we are already working on. And we have a group people, which I will say that we need a lot of people from the different background to this kind of activities. We need people from, we have people from physics who are experts in laser. We have people from mechanical who are actually good in terms of manufacturing as well as in the thermal parts, and we have people from the mechanical as well as mechanical for welding, and we have people from computer science also. We have people from other departments in instrumentation part who can actually help us in doing this particular work. So that's how it's completely a multidisciplinary process where you need knowledge from the different background to assemble this entire process. So I'm stopping here. If you have any questions, you can ask me.
Okay, if participants have any query, they can write in chat box, or they can unmute themselves and they can directly ask to expert. We are waiting for the queries now.